Welcome to BL Stories, where romance, drama, and unforgettable boys' love come to life. Love knows no limits, and the best stories aren't always straight. Subscribe now and join our growing BL-loving family. Chapter 31. Derek's Point of View. The day after returning home, my small apartment felt more chaotic than ever. Nicole had decided to move in, and my grandmother kept trying to catch me at home whenever she could. I still worked shifts at the electronics store, so I wasn't around during most of her surprise visits. Honestly, I didn't want to keep working there, but I also didn't want to depend entirely on someone else for money. What if the support stopped one day? I needed my own backup. I'd always been careful with money, saving most of it and spending only on food, bills, and rent. Even if I had help, I still made sure my paycheck covered the essentials. Sasha, meanwhile, was nervous all day, convinced my grandmother was about to show up and destroy our peace with her intimidating presence and sharp stares. Nicole wanted to stick close, mostly to protect Sasha, since Grandma made him anxious. He'd randomly shout things in Russian like he was reliving battles from a war he'd never even fought. Every hour, I got texts from them, reports about fancy cars parked nearby or mysterious men in black suits supposedly watching my empty parking space. Everyone was acting strange and I hated it. By the time I finished work and drove home, I braced myself for trouble. But when I pulled up, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. No expensive cars. No men in suits. Just quiet. Still, I hesitated at the stairwell, keys in hand, wishing the rest of the evening could stay calm. Inside, it was only Sasha. Nicole got called into work, Sasha said as I locked the door. She might be getting promoted to manager. That's good for her, I said, trying to sound more upbeat than I felt. You okay? He asked, trailing me toward the bedroom. Just tired. Confused too. Yeah. Same. I narrowed my eyes at him. Why are you tired? You've just been here all day. He smirked, clearly ready with some ridiculous story. I cut him off before he could say something outrageous. Never mind. Forget I asked. I tossed my uniform into the laundry basket and grabbed a towel. Just then my phone rang. The number wasn't familiar, and I immediately suspected it might be connected to my grandmother. Hello. I answered cautiously. Yo, Derek. The voice was familiar. Who is this? It's Eddie. Relief washed over me. Eddie had been one of the few decent guys from my construction job. We were close in age, which helped us get along. Hey man, what's up? I asked as I stepped into the bathroom to change. I got your number from the boss. Hope that's cool. Yeah, sure. You're busy tonight? It's Peter's birthday. We're heading to the bar, and everyone wanted to invite you. Kind of a farewell too, you know, since you worked with us for 2 years. That caught me off guard. Most of them had never treated me kindly, except Eddie. It felt more like the boss's idea than theirs. I don't know, I admitted. Please? I'd really like you to come. There'll be food and drinks. It'll be fun. He paused, realizing his choice of words, then quickly added, sorry, I'm in just good company. I chuckled. What time? 11. I'll text you if I decide, okay? Hope you show up, Derek. After the call, I let the shower wash away the stress. I knew Eddie liked me, though he kept it hidden. He wasn't ready to come out, maybe never would be, not with the kind of people he was surrounded by. His family, our coworkers, most of them were openly judgmental, especially about men like me. It wasn't safe for him. I thought back to how I came out at that job. It wasn't planned, it just happened. One afternoon, I had forgotten my wallet, and Leo, who was visiting, brought it to me. He arrived straight from the beach, sun-kissed and glowing, with Nicole blasting pop music from the car. As he handed me the wallet, everyone from work happened to be nearby. They laughed, whispering cruel things, and I froze. But then I pulled Leo back, kissed him in front of everyone, and made it clear, this was the person I loved. It wasn't the safest choice, but it was the truest. That moment changed everything. Some mocked me afterward, but they never dared mention Leo again. Deep down, I think they knew better. Now, with that job behind me, I had freedom. More time for the gym, for shows I'd always put off, and most importantly, for Leo. Still, I texted Eddie back 2 hours later and agreed to go. If nothing else, I wanted to support him. He didn't deserve to feel as alone as he did. Back in the apartment, I noticed Sasha still glued to the window. "When are you going to stop spying on the street?" I asked. "When your grandmother stops sending people to watch us," he muttered. "She's not sending spies." "Come on, you're making me nervous." "You weren't here when she gave me the death stare," he shot back dramatically. I sighed. "Sasha, you're too much." He finally stepped away and plopped down on the couch beside me, his arm way too close for comfort. "You know," he said, "Nicole told me you used to be the popular football player in high school. Parties, friends, the works." I frowned. First of all, that doesn't mean I was cool. Teenagers think popularity equals cool, but that's not true. And second, I didn't throw parties all the time. I went to them to escape what was going on in my head. Football helped me too. Sasha leaned back, thoughtful. "Still, sounds like you used to be different." "Yeah," I admitted. "But different doesn't always mean better." "But you don't deny you had a lot of friends and were mega popular." "I was outgoing, people thought I was straight, and I guess I was kind of cute, so it just worked out that way." "Was Leo cute too?" "Yeah," I admitted. "I never saw him before he moved in, aside from a childhood photo his mom once showed me. When we first shared a room, I couldn't stop thinking about him. It was distracting. I had to find ways to keep myself from making it obvious." "I never thought about hiding that kind of stuff," Sasha said casually. "That's because you don't care who notices," I teased. He suddenly started to say, "My brother once tried to." "Please," I interrupted, throwing my hand up. "No more weird family stories. I beg you." "What?" he asked, wide-eyed and innocent. "I didn't actually do anything. He just tried." "Oh my goodness," I muttered, covering half my face to hold in laughter. "Why do I let you live with me again? You even let me sleep in your room." "That's a questionable decision," he said in complete seriousness. I narrowed my eyes at him. "You're not trying to bother me while I sleep, right?" "I'm not interested in you," he replied. "I'd only step in if it meant protecting Nicole." "Then I'll make sure she's always safe," I said with a laugh. He tilted his head. "Why did you let me stay with you in the first place?" "We've already talked about it. We became good friends in the hospital, and I didn't want to see you out on the street. I trusted you and my instincts." "Thanks," he said quietly. "At least someone cared about me. And now you have more than just me. You've got Nicole, Priscilla, Jesse, and Leo." Sasha wrinkled his nose. Leo doesn't count. He's in love with me." "I'm pretty sure it's me he loves," I muttered. "I get why he loves you. I don't get why you love him," Sasha said, his tone serious. That was the thing about Sasha. He was always critical of Leo, and I never really understood why. He wasn't a bad person, just shaped by his family's views. His dad especially was harsh, and their home environment was steeped in homophobia. To Sasha, Leo's energy and flamboyance stood out too much, while I just looked like some quiet guy who happened to be gay. Deep down, I figured Sasha's discomfort came from what he was taught, not who he really was. I loved Leo for his patience and the way he handled Sasha's attitude. He seemed to understand him before I even did. "He makes me happy," I said simply. "And yes, he's really cute." Sasha's phone buzzed, and he answered immediately. "Hey. Yeah, I'll be out in a minute." "You leaving?" I asked as he stood to stretch. "Yeah, Nicole's outside. We're gonna hang out." That was Nicole on the phone? "Yeah. Never mind. If I'm back late, I'll just sleep on the couch," he said, grabbing his wallet. "We're still hitting the gym tomorrow, right?" "Yeah. Have fun." "Thanks. See you later." And just like that, I was alone. With 2 hours to kill before meeting Eddie, I sat at my computer and played a few games. Realistically, I knew I'd only hang out with Eddie for an hour before heading home. Still, one night out wouldn't hurt. Eddie was one of the few people from that job who didn't give me headaches. When it came time to get dressed, I stared at my closet in frustration. Most of my wardrobe was black, simple, and plain. But tucked away was a pair of dark purple jeans Leo had bought me. I had never worn them, but tonight felt like the right time. I paired them with a black sweater, sleeves rolled up so I wouldn't overheat. For once, I actually felt good about how I looked. Before leaving, I snapped a few mirror selfies and sent them to Leo. His response came instantly, despite him being busy. WTF? Damn? That's my baby? I smiled. Yeah, I was his. On my way to the bar, I thought about parking in front of the big windows where my old coworkers usually sat, just to remind them of what they could never have, but the spot was already taken. Probably for the best. As I pulled up down the street, my nerves kicked in. A part of me already knew Eddie wanted to talk about something important. We had spent a lot of time together, and even if he didn't call me a friend, I considered him one. If he was going to tell me something, I hoped it was simply that he trusted me, not some confession that would complicate things. The bar wasn't too crowded for a Tuesday night. Its neon red and green lights glowed against the broken street lamps outside, making the place seem warmer and more welcoming. I texted Eddie that I'd arrived, and within a minute, he came bounding out with a drink in hand, his grin wide and genuine. "I'm so glad you came," he said, leaning through my car window to turn off the ignition. "Come on, dude, let's head inside." Eddie was, in many ways, your typical small-town guy. Backward hat, jeans, big family, but he carried himself differently. He had laugh lines, freckles, and a kindness that stood out. He wasn't like the rest. "I'm not drinking tonight," I warned as I stepped out of the car. His eyes flicked over my outfit and he snorted. "You look like you're headed to a hipster cafe." "What? It doesn't look bad," I said defensively. I didn't say it looked bad. Just different. Not what I'm used to seeing you wear. "I could always take it off," I joked. "That'd give half the moms inside a heart attack," he said, laughing. We walked into the bar, and sure enough, I got some glares from a couple of ex-coworkers. Luckily, the bar's owner liked me enough to make sure I was welcome, even if her husband didn't. Eddie led me to a smaller booth near the window. His hands fidgeted under the table, and his eyes darted everywhere but at me. He definitely had something on his mind. Sighing, I decided to break the silence. "So, how's everything been?" "You quitting really upset the guys," he admitted. "So? Can't they replace me in, like, a second?" He shrugged. I rolled my eyes. Typical. They were just looking for a reason to be angry at me. "What about you? You didn't even tell me you were quitting. What happened?" Eddie asked, finally looking at me. "I just didn't need that extra job anymore," I said, keeping the explanation short. He raised an eyebrow, impressed. "So, you're finally making some real money?" "You could say that," I replied with a grin. "I wish I could make more," he admitted. "But you know, times are rough." We talked for a while and ordered a few light plates. Most of the other guys ignored us, which was relief enough. They weren't bothering me for once. Then Eddie's expression changed. He stared at his phone for a long second and asked, quieter than before, "Can I talk to you alone for a minute?" "Sure. Where do you want to go?" "Outside." I left some money on the table to cover the food and followed him through the crowd. The alley behind the bar was darker than I expected. A thin moon and the bar's window light made a few puddles shine, but overall, it felt a little exposed. Eddie paced, restless, and I watched him, sensing something serious was coming. "Everything okay?" I asked. "No, nothing's okay," he breathed. "It'll be fine," I said, trying to steady him. "Don't say that." He crouched, took off his hat, and twisted the brim until it lost shape. When he stood, he moved toward me and kissed me. It hit me like a shock. I stepped back, stunned. This was not what I'd expected, not even close. "Eddie, I have a boyfriend," I managed. "Why would you?" "I had to," he told me, his voice breaking. "No, you didn't." He started to step away, then froze. Behind him, shadows moved, 6 figures, closing in quickly. The realization came in a rush. This was a setup. My stomach dropped. I swallowed the feeling of betrayal and drew a breath, trying to keep my face calm. "I'm sorry," Eddie said, then slipped into the dark and disappeared. My jaw went tight. Before I could react, one of them spoke. 6-1? Don't worry, everyone will get a turn. I had nothing to say. Shock made me small and silent. The first man, a short, heavy-set guy, lunged and swung. I dodged, grabbed his arm, and used his momentum to shove him into a wall. He spun back and hit me, pain exploding in my ribs. Another blow landed in my gut and I doubled over. This was a group of men I'd spent months working beside. We weren't friends, but we were colleagues. All they had ever shown me was contempt. I stayed quiet at work. I did the job. That didn't stop them from deciding I was a target. They closed in fast. One of the bigger guys, tall, with a cold stare, stayed a step back, directing the others. As I grappled with two of them, another caught me off guard and connected with my face. I hit the ground hard. They didn't stop. Punches came from all sides. I tried to protect my head and ribs, but each blow found a gap in my defenses. A knee to my jaw made everything go white at the edges. Blood filled my mouth. I tasted metallic fear. "You won't guess what we're going to do to your boyfriend," one of them sneered. How did they even know his name? Panic sharpened into terror. Images of Leo, smiling, trusting, flooded my head, and suddenly I couldn't hold back the sob that was building in my chest. "You will not lay a finger on him," I spat through taste of blood. They forced me down again. Moonlight cut thin lines through the alley as they beat me until I could hardly breathe. My vision blurred. Each hit felt like a match struck along my ribs. They circled, jeering. I felt small and broken and utterly alone. Something inside me snapped. When one of them moved in too close, I found a reserve of anger and rose up, swinging with everything I had. I landed a punch that knocked a man out cold, tackled another, and for a moment the fight became a raw, messy scrabble of bodies. My fingers burned from impact. Pain laced every limb, but the thought of them going after Leo drove me to keep fighting. I hit until my knuckles cracked and bled. Then booted boots slammed me back to the ground. My breath came in ragged bursts. One of them, the tall one, leaned over me, the threat heavy in his voice. "If you think about wishing you weren't born, save it. You'll wish your boyfriend had never met you." "Stop," I screamed. It came out raw and useless. He kicked my ribs. Pain like knives tore through me. I tried to crawl away, but they had already stripped the fight from my limbs. I coughed, tasted blood, felt the dull weight of broken pride. The alley seemed endless and cold. Then someone shouted behind them. A voice I knew like a planted stone, "Get the bat." Footsteps paused. The man who had pulled a metal bar from the shadows held it up, face set to finish the job. "Get away from my grandson," said a voice I never expected to hear there. I looked up. My grandmother stood a few feet away, small but fierce, a handgun leveled at the group. Her eyes were hard as flint. There was no question she would use it. For a heartbeat, nothing moved. Then one of them tried to speak, and she fired a warning shot toward his feet. Panic rippled through them. They scattered, Luke dragging two others, and fled into the night. My grandmother didn't lower her gun until distant footsteps and the thud of a running car echoed away. People arrived in minutes after she barked into her phone. Hands lifted me, helped me into a car, and the world dimmed. When I came to again, I was somewhere not like a hospital, more like a lived-in room with a narrow bed. A tall window showed the familiar yard outside. My one working eye blinked. My grandmother sat by the bed, steady and all business. "Hello, Derek," she said softly as she stood. "Don't talk yet. You'll be okay. I need to ask something, then you can rest. Your friends and your partner know where you are. Should we take care of the ones who attacked you?" "What do you mean?" I croaked. She leaned close, voice low and unflinching. "You know what I mean. Say yes and I'll make sure it's handled." My thoughts went to Leo, to the fear in my gut when they mentioned him, to the hurt I imagined on his face. I thought of Eddie's kiss and the betrayal, of the alley's cold stones, and of my grandmother aiming that gun with no tremble. I nodded. Chapter 32. Derek's point of view. I couldn't remember much at first, but when I opened my eyes and the sunlight poured through a tall window, everything slowly returned. They had really attacked me. I always knew those men were hostile, but I never imagined it would come to that. My body ached everywhere, though nothing compared to the pain from that night. My ribs throbbed, the back of my head pulsed, but the rest felt almost manageable in comparison. It could have been far worse. Still, some details were missing. Why could I recall pieces so clearly, but not all of it? Was it my head injury? How bad was it really? And where was I now? The room didn't look familiar. The bright light made it hard to see outside. Beside me were machines you'd expect in a hospital, but none were hooked up. That was a small relief. No tubes, no wires, no four. I was alive, and apparently stable. I had survived a homophobic attack. The thought alone felt strange, almost surreal. The door opened and a woman in a crisp white uniform walked in. A nurse. She went straight to the cabinets, ignoring me completely. "Where am I?" I asked. No reply. Then another voice. "Kalina, is he awake?" The nurse responded in another language, one I recognized from an old roommate. No wonder she hadn't answered me. Seconds later, my grandmother walked in, smiling far too brightly for the situation. She wore a sharp, black outfit, looking less like a grandmother and more like some shadowy figure out of a legend. Am I still dreaming? I muttered to myself. "Good morning, Derek," she said warmly. "How are you feeling?" "Been better," I admitted. She chuckled. "The doctor said you were lucky nothing was broken. Either they weren't very strong, or you have stronger bones than you realize. Can't say the same for your face, though." I raised a hand to my cheek, wincing as soon as my fingers brushed beneath my eye. Pain shot through me. "What's wrong with it? Do I look terrible?" I asked. "You look fine," she replied smoothly. She was lying. "I want a mirror," I said. At her signal, Kalina retrieved one from under the sink. I hesitated, then lifted it. There was no hiding this. A black eye spread wide across my face, bruises blooming across my skin, and dried blood around my nose. The nurse quietly offered me wipes as if she'd read my thoughts. I could already imagine Leo teasing me, telling me I still looked handsome. He'd mean it too. The memory of the alley made me shiver. When the nurse left, my grandmother sat at the edge of the bed. "Thank you, I guess," I said awkwardly. "I don't even know what to thank you for. Why were you there that night?" She exhaled, resigned. "Yes, I was following you. But have you been sending people to watch my house? You've been scaring my roommate." "No. That's why I followed you myself. I have eyes everywhere, but even I don't know who those men were, or who sent them." That answer unsettled me more than I wanted to admit. I hadn't done anything to deserve this. The only connection I could trace led back to her. "Are you hiding something from me?" I asked. "Nothing," she said firmly. "I don't want my friends in danger. That's all I've been thinking about since you told me about my mother." Her gaze softened. "I promise you, I will find out who they are. No one will hurt you, or your friends. You have my word." I avoided answering. "Where are my things?" "Your car is outside. Your phone and wallet are on the table." I grabbed my phone. Dozens of missed calls and messages lit up the screen, most from Leo. I just sank. He must have been frantic. "Last night, did we talk?" I asked. "That was 2 days ago," she corrected gently. "You've been asleep since then." "What?" I bolted upright, panic rising. 2 days? The medication was necessary. You needed rest to heal. I dialed Leo's number immediately. He picked up before it even rang. "Hello. Derek." "Hey, I'm sorry. Don't baby me. Where have you been? Do you know how worried I've been? I haven't slept." His voice cracked, raw from crying. "Leo, please," I said softly. "Let me explain." When the line fell quiet except for his shaky breaths, I told him everything, about the attack, about my grandmother intervening, about waking here 2 days later. "Send me a picture," he said after a pause. I hesitated but lifted the phone and snapped one, bruises and all. He sniffed when it came through. "You still look good." I laughed weakly. "I knew you'd say that." "Are you going to report them?" he asked. "No." "Why not?" "It won't change what happened." He sighed hard. "You're okay though?" "Really? I'm okay," I promised. "I'll try to come up this weekend." "All right," I said quietly, knowing better than to argue. I love you. So much, he said. A smile tugged at my bruised face. I love you too. When the call ended, my grandmother tilted her head. Leo is his name? Short for Leonardo? Is he Italian? Yep. Tell me about him, she said with a small smile. Suspicion prickled, so I teased, why? Don't you dislike gay people? Her smile faded into something serious. I said our family isn't open-minded, but I didn't mean myself. I supported your mother when she came out. Then don't tell me to hide who I am, I said firmly. She studied me for a long moment, then admitted, your uncles, they are different. My eldest, Victor, lives in Germany. He has the letter you want. And let me guess, he hates people like me, I said bitterly. Her silence was answer enough. He is not a kind man. He learned that from his father. I couldn't stop him. Why does he have the letter? We held it for you until you turned 18. He took it before leaving for Germany. I'm sorry, Derek. My memory, it isn't what it used to be. As long as I get that letter untouched, everything's forgiven, I said. Of course, she promised, touching my leg gently. But please, tell me more about Leo. How long have you been together? About 10 years. Her eyes widened. 10 years? Wow. She laughed softly. Is he cute? I leaned back, closing my eyes, picturing Leo's face. Yeah, I said, smiling despite the pain. He really is. So cute. I've yet to honestly see another man more attractive. Does that mean he's the one? My grandmother asked. I opened my eyes at that. Yeah. He's the one. I don't want anyone else, ever. If something happened and we weren't together, I swear I'd stay single forever. No one would ever be enough. I didn't realize he was that special. That's exactly why I don't want to involve him in any of this, I told her. I've been anxious since those men said they would go after him. They knew his name, and who knows what else. Now there's someone else lurking around me? No thanks. You don't have to worry about those men anymore, she assured me. I didn't want to press further. That conversation opened doors I didn't want to open. The people on this side of my family were complicated and dangerous in ways I'd rather avoid. Still, because it was Leo, I would do almost anything. Thank you, I said softly. Do you want to marry him? She asked, eyes bright. Yeah, I said without hesitation. I've even been looking at rings. I can help with that, she said, sounding pleased. Thanks, but no thanks, I replied. I want to do it on my own. Fine, she conceded. At least call me so I can make sure you're getting a good ring. You'll want the best. Okay, I agreed. I hope I get invited to the wedding, she added with a grin. Trying to change the subject, I asked, so the party, when is it? Oh yes. Chandler told you about everything, didn't he? If he weren't an adult, I'd scold him for spilling the beans. He already told me, I said. Well, it's been moved. I moved it earlier so we'd have a better chance of getting that letter back. Victor won't come unless we make it worth his trouble. She looked pleased with herself. When? I asked. In a week and a half. Don't worry, you'll get the details. A week and a half. I hadn't expected it to be so soon. I felt suddenly behind, nowhere near prepared. My phone buzzed. I held it up to my ear and waited. Hello, a cheerful voice answered. Kate, I said, a little anxious. Chapter 33. Leo's point of view. This guy is trying to start drama for no reason, Marvin complained, eyes never leaving the bag of Doritos on the coffee table. He says you talk behind people's backs, but we all know you say it to their faces. Another liar? Shocking, I said, rolling my eyes. A small group of us lounged in the common room on a Friday night. Those of us who preferred snacks and gossip to parties. The last 2 weeks had been packed with work and exams. We were all exhausted and needed a quiet night in. Most of the people here were classmates or friends I'd made through campus groups. We'd all been through the same grind, so tonight was about recharging with junk food and easy conversation. I've noticed something, Jamila said, always the sharp one. New gay guys we meet get weird when they see you. Is it because I'm cute? I asked when she glanced my way. Maybe, Jamila shrugged, but it's also your followers, your life, and the way you carry yourself. People get insecure when they see something they think they can't have. Marvin chimed in. I introduce Leo to new people just to watch the reaction. It's entertaining. Stop, I protested. People are people. Some like me. Some don't. Also, I only got more followers because I once took a selfie with Lana Del Rey and everyone freaked out. Lots of thirst follows. Nothing serious. It's true, Jamila agreed. Social media does its thing. Also, I continued, trying to sound casual, I live here because my mom and her husband help out. If I had to pay rent, that'd be a very different story. And yes, my boyfriend is hot, I know. My friends snorted and laughed, perfectly content to roast me in the safe space of our lounge. Hey babe, a low voice whispered right beside my ear. I jumped and squealed like I wasn't supposed to as Will slotted himself into the armchair beside me. Will? Jamila groaned. Why are you here? I was just walking to the store for snacks and bumped into you, he said, lounging like he owned the place. His hat was forward today, a look he usually saved for mischief. He put his chin on my shoulder in a friendly way that made everyone laugh. Why are you dressed like that? I asked, noticing his all-black outfit. You look like a sexy serial killer, Marvin said before I could respond. A grin spread across Will's face. Is that an insult or a compliment? You are too close, I told him. And don't call me babe or I'll. He laughed and squeezed in beside me. We were all comfortable enough with one another that personal space bent for comedic effect. Jamila rolled her eyes. Will was gonna grab snacks. Not that he ever leaves his room for fun. He keeps trying to flirt with you, she said later, then nudged me. Will's making kissy faces. I glanced over. Will, true to form, puckered his lips at me in a ridiculous way. I leaned away, laughing despite myself. He was one of those straight guys who flirted freely with everyone, playful, harmless, and annoyingly charming. Jamila pretended to be annoyed, but I could tell she found him entertaining. Someone called my name. Yes, I said, scanning the room. Joni's voice floated through. She wanted me at her birthday party tomorrow. If I'm not dramatically depressed, I'll come, I said, half joking. Will offered, if you need to talk, my door's open. I tapped his arm lightly. Thanks, but last time we hung out you tried to kiss me. Okay, I was drunk. I apologized, he said sheepishly. And I told you I wouldn't mind for fun, but I have a boyfriend, I said, smiling. Damn right you do, Derek said from the other side of the room, a grin on his face as he slid next to me. I screamed louder this time and somehow ended up on Will's lap, trembling like a scared kitten. Derek was standing right there by the armchair, grinning at me while I clung to Will. My heart was racing, and I didn't even notice Will had his arms wrapped tightly around me until Derek gave him a funny look. Sorry for scaring you, Derek said with an apologetic smile. Sorry for not telling you he was behind you, Jamila added casually while inspecting her nails. Derek helped me to my feet, and before I could say much, he leaned in and gave me a quick kiss. My head was spinning, not because of the kiss, but because I couldn't believe he was actually here. Why didn't you tell me you were coming? I asked, holding back tears. It had been over 15 days since I'd last seen my boyfriend, and the moment he appeared, I realized just how much I'd missed him. Wanted to surprise you, he said sweetly, holding my hands. Just a tip, I muttered, still recovering from the scare. Jump scares are not the best kind of surprise. The real surprise is outside. Outside? I echoed. Is it a car? Jamila guessed. Is it Ellen DeGeneres? Marvin joked. Is it my will to live? Because I need that back, Will added. Derek rolled his eyes but didn't answer. All right, let's see this surprise, I said, walking down the hall with Derek close behind. People in the building gave him admiring looks as we passed, but I didn't mind. I missed you, by the way, he said softly, catching up. I missed you too, I replied, handing him my phone since I had no pockets. As I pushed through the doors and stepped into the night air, someone jumped out of the bushes with a roar. I shrieked, falling backward onto the ground. Nicole burst out laughing. You are so mean for that, I yelled while Derek helped me up. Thankfully, he wasn't laughing, he was clearly on my side. "I love you, now give me a hug," Nicole teased. "Never," I said, but I hugged her anyway. Her hair looked especially pretty, like something out of a fairy tale. "Is this my surprise?" I asked, pointing at Nicole. "Nope," Derek replied. "Keep walking," Nicole urged with a grin. We talked along the way until we reached the parking lot, and there it was, Nicole's RV, decorated with bold letters that read, "No drama, real love only road trip." "What's this?" I asked. "Did you think our plans of traveling across the states were over just because of what happened?" Derek said. "Well, yes," I admitted. "We both had to pause for school and work. I figured we'd wait until later." "True," he said, smirking. "But the author didn't call this road trip for nothing." "Okay, seriously, what's going on? You can't just show up with an RV and expect me to drop everything. I only have the weekend off. Classes start again on Monday." "Idiot," a voice muttered from inside the RV. "Sasha," I said, crossing my arms. "Really? Another scare?" Derek just smirked. "Go inside." I rolled my eyes, already suspecting Sasha was in on this. Probably some kind of double-date surprise. Cute, but predictable. I opened the door, only to scream again as my cousin Kate popped out. I fell backwards onto the concrete in pure shock. When I came to my senses, I found myself surrounded inside the RV by Kate, Sasha, Priscilla, Dakota, Nathan, Nicole, and Derek. "Kate, what are you doing here?" I gasped, overwhelmed. "I'm the surprise," she said brightly. I hugged her so tightly I thought I might cry. She was the one cousin I always kept in touch with, even though we rarely saw each other. Her new shoulder-length, reddish-brown hair and glowing skin made her look completely different. I could barely believe she was standing in front of me. "Stefan says hi, by the way," she added. Hearing my brother's name pulled at old memories. Our family in Italy, the drama, and the way I'd pulled away from it all. It had been painful, but I had chosen to focus on myself, my mom, and Derek. Now, though, seeing Kate here felt like a piece of home I hadn't realized I was missing. Everyone gave us space as Derek and Kate led me to the RV's back bedroom. I sat on the bed while Derek stood before me, dressed sharply, his healing eye hardly noticeable. "Do you remember that family party I told you about?" Derek asked. "The one for your mom and grandfather?" "Yeah. The one where they don't want me to bring you as my date. Because they're less than accepting," I muttered. "Exactly. So," he paused, glancing at Kate. "That's why I'm here," Kate chimed in with a mischievous smile. Derek grinned. "I told them I wouldn't be bringing you." "Excuse me?" I started to protest. Kate cut me off. "Relax. He's not taking someone else. He's taking you, but with a twist." "What twist?" I asked nervously. They exchanged a look. "You're going as Alice Storm," Kate said. The name hit me like a lightning bolt. "No way," I groaned, realizing what they meant. "Yup," Derek said, sitting beside me. "You're going undercover." I stood up, pacing. "The party's tomorrow. Why am I just hearing about this now? Did anyone even ask if I want to do this?" "Yes, because I know you," Derek said confidently. "And I take full blame for the timing," Kate admitted. "Derek called me weeks ago with this plan, but I wasn't sure I could make it. Between school, work, and finding the perfect outfit, it took forever. But when I finally got the dress yesterday, I booked the first flight out this morning. Everything's ready. And I'm paying her a lot for this," Derek added. Kate laughed. "True. Money helps, but honestly, I wouldn't miss this for the world." "What on earth are you two making me wear?" I asked, my heart racing with nerves. "This party is going to be full of rich people, and you're sending me in disguise? In a dress I didn't even choose? This feels criminal." "Relax," Kate said. Derek wanted to keep the Alice Storm aesthetic, but with a twist. "We're dropping the storm part. Tomorrow night, when you walk into that mansion, you'll be Alice Morgan. And not just any Alice, you'll be a queen. A Gothic queen." "A Gothic queen?" I repeated nervously. Kate walked toward me, tilting my head and examining my face. Her eyes narrowed in concentration. You have great skin and soft features. You'll pass easily. The gothic look doesn't only work for pale skin. It'll make you look like a mysterious, elegant goddess. I am definitely none of those things, I muttered. Don't worry, she said with a smirk. You'll pull it off. I saw the dress. It looks expensive, Derek chimed in. It's not the cost, it's the designer. Thankfully, I have connections, Kate explained. What about the hair? I asked cautiously. Long and black. Straight. Parted in the middle. And don't touch it. It'll drape down your back like a cape. I sat back down, overwhelmed. Derek's family didn't even want me at this party. What if they figured out it was me? Sure, they had never seen me before, but I still worried. They were openly unwelcoming, especially after how they treated Derek. And the thought of walking into a mansion full of people who all looked alike, while I stood out like a character from a gothic film, made me uneasy. But this wasn't about me. This was for Derek. He needed that letter. It wasn't right that his family kept something that wasn't theirs. For him, I'd walk into that mansion no matter how nervous I felt. Okay, I understand the surprise, I said. But why the RV? And why is everyone here? Oh, I invited everyone to dinner, Derek admitted. And I thought picking you up would be more fun with the RV. Nicole let us borrow it. Technically, it's her grandpa's. Kate hugged me tightly, her voice trembling. I'm just so happy to be here. I'm happy you're here too, I told her. It's been forever. I know. Life's been hard, and I haven't even visited my mom in 2 years. You know I'd help if you asked, I said. I'd never ask family for money. I would, Derek muttered from the corner. That's because you don't like anyone in your family except your sister, I teased. He only shrugged. Just then, Nathan knocked and entered before I could answer. Hey, just wanted to say hi. I literally saw you this morning, I said flatly. Fine, guess I'll leave and jump out of the RV, he replied dramatically. We all laughed. The space was cramped, just a bed and barely enough room to stand, but the chaos somehow felt comforting. The ride was long, but dinner made up for it. Derek had booked a fancy restaurant, one I'd never have gone to otherwise. His grandmother had given him money, probably to make up for lost time, and he decided to spend it on all of us together. Dinner ended up being one of the best memories of my life. Surrounded by friends, family, and laughter, I felt free. Derek had made it happen, and I couldn't stop thinking how lucky I was to have him. Of course, the night wasn't over. Back at Derek's apartment, I found myself lying on the bed while Kate and Derek prepared for Phase 2. Suddenly, a sheet of paper tore away from my skin. Yes, I was being waxed, I thought miserably. Please be gentle. I begged, my voice breaking. Kate laughed. You're barely hairy, but we need everything smooth. This is nothing. Kate, you're my cousin, stop saying stuff like that. I groaned. Derek chuckled from his corner. By the time they finished, my skin stung, but the worst was over. Derek finally cleared the room, leaving just the three of us. Kate set up her tools on the dresser while Derek helped me clean up. When I sat in front of the mirror, Kate got to work. She shaped my eyebrows, blended foundation, and layered shadows with the precision of an artist. Slowly, my reflection changed. My face was no longer mine. It belonged to Alice Morgan. By the time she set the long black wig on its stand, preparing to straighten it, I felt a lump rise in my throat. Seeing Kate so focused, doing what she loved, while helping me at the same time, it almost brought me to tears. Tomorrow was the big day. And ready or not, Alice Morgan was going to step into that mansion. Kate was also the one who found Derek's suit. His grandmother had offered to buy it, but he insisted they match. And oh, his suit was something else. All black, with sleek gloves and an intentionally dramatic feel. Instead of a regular shirt, he wore a high-collared long-sleeve top that mirrored the high neckline of my dress. Together we looked like we'd stepped out of a dark fairy tale. We were basically going to be the apocalypse walking into that party, dramatic, intimidating, and impossible to ignore. The room full of pale, perfectly coiffed society types was going to have their jaws on the floor. The gays were coming and they would notice. Kate finished the makeup and reached for the wig. When she set the long black hair on my head, I felt transformed. The wig was flawless. I barely recognized myself in the mirror, strange and startling in the best possible way. Wow, I breathed. The makeup was dramatic but elegant. My lips were a deep blood red, and the eye makeup was sharp and sculpted, less clown, more vampire queen. Kate had chiseled my cheekbones with shadows and highlights until I looked like someone carved from onyx. "You ready for the dress?" she asked. "Yes," I said, hardly daring to move. She revealed it in a slow flourish. I gasped. It was more beautiful than I'd imagined. The gown was dark and sophisticated, plenty of drama without being revealing. The sleeves were voluminous, and the skirt flowed like midnight. The fabric was heavier at the waist, cinched, elegant, and from the thigh down it became sheer in a way that felt ethereal, not indecent. The high collar fit snugly but stylishly. "Holy Mother of Dragons," I whispered as Kate did final touches to the wig. "We'll finish everything in the morning," she said. "Nails first thing." "Sharp claws?" I asked with a nervous laugh. "Of course," Kate replied, mischievous. "How else will you intimidate people?" The dress skimmed my body in a way that softened me. I twirled and felt a little silly and a lot regal. The collar was tight at first, but the look was worth it. "Ready for the heels?" Kate asked, producing a pair of very tall shoes. "Oh, wow," I said, looking down at them. They were shiny, black, and epic. "You'll be fine," she assured me. "Just don't trip." I practiced walking in them. Mostly it went well, though if someone tried to chase me, I doubted I'd sprint gracefully. Still, heels or not, I felt powerful. The whole ensemble made me feel less like Leo the anxious boyfriend and more like Alice Morrigan, an image cast in deliberate shadows. Kate added jewelry, a dark necklace and a few rings, including a sparkly band on what I now called my wedding finger. It was costume, but the symbol felt meaningful in the moment. I breathed, trying to steady myself. When I peeked out the door, the reactions were everything. They were speechless, then warm praise spilled out. "You are going to rock this," Dakota said. "You look incredible." "You look like you belong in a painting," Priscilla added, laughing softly. "You look amazing," Derek said, checking me over with obvious pride. "Still gay?" I teased. "Definitely," he replied, smiling. I posed like we were shooting for a magazine, the laughter and stunned silence easing the knot in my chest. Kate had done a brilliant job. With everyone's support, the idea of stepping into that mansion felt less terrifying and more like an adventure. Later, I marveled at my new black acrylic nails, long, jeweled, and theatrical. They felt like a secret weapon, though also hilariously impractical. How am I supposed to pick anything up? I complained as I tried to grab a pencil. "That's what they invented to make things dramatic," Kate said. Derek strolled past and, with a straight face, said something cheeky about alternatives to using hands. We all laughed. The banter kept the nerves at bay. At one point, the chatter turned naughty for a second, Nicole and Kate teasing about a pre-party romp, and Sasha blushed and protested. I rolled my eyes and slipped away to check on Derek. He sat on the edge of the bed, quieter than I'd seen him. "You okay?" I asked. "No," he said honestly. "Talk to me," I said, sitting beside him and taking his hand in mine. He squeezed it back. "I don't want to do this," he admitted. "But I have to. They have that letter, and nobody else seems to be trying to get it for me." His voice was tight. "You won't do it alone," I told him. "I'm with you." He looked at me like he'd been given something he'd hoped for. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this without asking." "Don't be sorry," I said. "It's scary, but I'd do anything for you." He lifted my chin and kissed me, then pulled away. We ended up lying together, arms wrapped around one another, and for a while the world outside Derek's apartment didn't exist. When Kate returned to her work, the three of us finished the final touches. The wig was brushed until it shone, the makeup was perfected, the nails were bedazzled just so. The hair sat on a stand like a dark crown. Kate was all concentration and joy, this was her element, and seeing her so happy nearly made me cry for the right reasons. 2 hours later we were done. I sat quiet in the living room with full makeup on and no wig yet. Derek refueled in the kitchen because he hadn't eaten. I felt jittery and hollow and oddly full all at once. The apartment hummed with a kind of collective nervous energy. Everyone was waiting, everyone cared. It was cold and electric at the same time. Tomorrow the mansion would open its doors. Tomorrow I would be Alice Morgan. Tonight, wrapped in eyeliner and borrowed finery, I practiced being brave. "Okay, the car is outside," Derek announced as he walked out of the kitchen, still chewing. His grandmother had ordered a car for us. We weren't driving ourselves. There was a professional driver waiting to take us to the evening's gathering. It wasn't at Derek's family mansion this time, but at an even bigger one, the home of his grandfather's longtime friend and business partner. Kate rushed over to me for some last-minute adjustments before carefully placing the wig on my head. It was so secure that I was convinced it would survive a windstorm, or even me running at full speed. Honestly, a wig that stayed put was a gift I didn't take for granted. "I'm gonna cry," I whispered as they helped me up. "If you do, you'll mess everything up," Kate warned with a mock glare, raising her fists the way she used to when we were kids. "That highlighter is blinding," Derek added, shielding his eyes in playful exaggeration. "You know what that is?" Kate teased. "Please." "After 2 hours of makeup talk, I think I qualify as an expert," Derek replied with a smirk. "Ready?" he asked, this time more seriously. I nodded, even as my heart began to pound. Walking in heels was no small task, but I managed without stumbling. With each step, nerves battled excitement. Still, I couldn't deny how regal I felt. Derek took my hand and guided me outside. The car waiting for us was stunning, luxurious in every detail. Even the driver's posture screamed elegance. "Call me if you need anything," Kate said before we left. "I will. Thanks." I lifted my dress to avoid brushing it against the ground as the driver opened the door. Sliding inside, I closed my eyes and inhaled deeply, trying to calm the rising panic. "It's okay," Derek murmured as the driver started the car. It felt silly to be this anxious, but this night was important to him. His family carried a complicated legacy, full of secrets and betrayals. His mother had once tried to escape it, but the shadow still loomed over them. I couldn't bear the thought of him being hurt again, not after everything he'd already endured. I opened my eyes and found Derek watching me quietly. I smiled and squeezed his hand. "You really do look beautiful," he whispered. "I was always called a pretty boy growing up," I said softly. "I used to think it was an insult. Maybe it wasn't after all." He chuckled. "You look incredible no matter what. It just feels natural." I rolled my eyes. "I'm gay, of course it feels natural." "I don't think that's the reason," he replied. "I think it's just you." I pretended to pout. "Maybe I should quit college and do this full-time." He laughed, and for a moment, the tension lifted. The ride was long, and traffic heavy. To distract myself, I played a game on my phone while occasionally peeking out the tinted window. People stopped and stared at the flashy car. Some even smiled or waved when they caught sight of me inside. The attention made me feel strangely confident, like I was stepping into a role larger than myself. "How close are we?" I asked the driver, slipping into a playful, exaggerated accent. "Just a few more minutes, ma'am," he replied politely. Derek grinned at my act. "Nothing, my beautiful," he teased when I raised a brow at him. Finally, the city gave way to open fields, then forests lined with sprawling estates. Each house we passed seemed bigger than the last until, at last, a massive mansion appeared before us. It was so enormous it reminded me of a modern palace, complete with fountains, statues, and staircases wide enough to fit an army. There were dozens of cars entering through the gates. Security checked every vehicle before allowing it through. My nerves spiked again. Being surrounded by so many strangers, all from Derek's family's world, felt overwhelming. When it was our turn, I forced myself to remain calm, though my heart raced. Once we were cleared and the car pulled up to the front steps, I froze. So many people were watching. "You okay?" Derek asked gently. "Nope," I muttered, forcing a shaky smile. "It's fine. We're together," he reminded me. That simple reassurance helped. I wasn't Leo anymore, I was Alice. I could be strong for him. The driver opened Derek's door first. He stepped out, then turned and extended his hand toward me. My chest tightened, but I reached for him, lifted my dress carefully, and stepped out into the open. All eyes were on me. Dozens of elegantly dressed women walked up the grand staircase, but compared to their traditional gowns and polished hairstyles, I stood out completely. A flicker of pride rose in me despite the nerves. I took Derek's arm and let him lead the way up the stairs. A girl gave me a sharp glare as we passed, and without thinking, I smiled sweetly at her. "Chill," Derek whispered under his breath. "I'm perfectly calm," I replied innocently. Before I could say more, a cheerful voice called out from above. "Derek! Derek!" We both looked up to see a handsome young man waving from the top of the stairs, his blonde hair glinting in the light, blue eyes bright, and a charming smile spread across his face. "Hey!" Derek said a little awkwardly as we reached the top of the grand staircase. "I'm so glad you're here," the man replied warmly, pulling Derek into a hug. Derek accepted it, ever the polite one. "Chandler, this is my beautiful wife, Alice." Derek nearly stumbled over the introduction but caught himself just in time. "Oh, so you're the famous Chandler," I said with a smile, extending my hand. I made sure my wedding ring caught the light as he leaned in to kiss my hand. "Nice to meet you, Alice." "Forgive me, I thought." "You thought wrong," Derek interrupted quickly. Chandler smirked. "Were you teasing me then?" "Something like that," Derek admitted. "Well, I never imagined Derek's uncle could be so handsome," I teased with a laugh. "You're one to talk, Miss Alice," Chandler replied, his eyes crinkling kindly. "You are radiant tonight. Derek, you're very lucky." Hearing him call Derek nephew felt odd. Derek always seemed older than that, wiser, somehow. "High school sweethearts," Derek said smoothly. That made me stare at him. He almost never used that phrase, he thought it was too cheesy. Was he trying to make me cry and ruin my mascara? "Come, I want you to meet my wife," Chandler said, placing a hand on Derek's back and guiding him further inside. I lingered behind for a moment. Before stepping in, I glanced down at myself, making sure I still looked as dazzling as I hoped. The answer was a confident yes. The moment I crossed the threshold, my breath caught. Did I walk into a castle? Chandeliers sparkled above, twin staircases swept upward, and every detail gleamed with wealth and power. It was overwhelming, almost surreal. As I moved through the entry hall, a few young attendants gave me polite bows. I smiled back, wondering why anyone still bowed in the 21st century. At the base of the staircase, I spotted Derek and Chandler heading up one side. On the opposite staircase, an older woman watched me closely. I knew who she was without needing an introduction. Roselle, Derek's grandmother. Gathering my dress, I ascended toward her. "Do you drink?" she asked once I reached the last step. "I do," I answered softly, glancing back one last time at Derek. He gave me a reassuring smile before disappearing from sight. "Come with me," Roselle said kindly. She led me into a smaller sitting room lined with bookcases and warm-toned couches. A side table was set with bottles and glasses. She poured us drinks with steady hands. "Ice." "Yes, please." She handed me the glass. "I've been wanting to meet you for a very long time, Leonardo. And I've been wanting to thank you personally for taking care of Derek," I replied, raising the glass politely before taking a tiny sip. "The taste was not for me." "You saved him," she said. "And that means you're special in my eyes." I set the glass down and joined her on the couch. "This is one of the boldest things I've ever witnessed," she said, gesturing toward my outfit. "His family didn't want him to bring his boyfriend," I said plainly. "So here I am." "I told him not to bring you at all, but he doesn't listen to me," Roselle admitted. Her voice carried a faint, unusual lilt, as if another accent hid beneath her polished American one. "Leo. Please call me Leo. Or Alice, if that's easier," I said with a touch of sass. She smiled faintly. "Leo, what you must understand is that I never truly had control over my children, even when they were young. I loved them, yes, but my late husband shaped them more than I ever could. He left behind arrogance, selfishness, even cruelty. That's why Derek, and the good I see in him, means so much to me. It shows that not everything in this family is lost. That's a long way of saying they're prejudiced, I muttered. She chuckled softly. I just wish I could have come as myself, I admitted. It's my first time meeting them, and yet I'm forced to hide. I'm sorry, she said sincerely. But it truly is for your safety. Yeah, I get it. If I came as Leo, Derek might not even get his letter. We spoke for a long time. Roselle asked about my life, my parents, and even my name. She listened like someone who hadn't been heard in years. It struck me how lonely she seemed. She wanted desperately to matter to Derek, to give him something good from this family's wreckage. I could see it in her eyes. Finally, she stood and walked me toward a window overlooking the massive front lawn. Leo, this party hasn't been about honoring the past in a long time. People come here to make deals, to hide corruption in plain sight. It's a mask. So why bring us here? I asked, anger stirring in my chest. Why expose Derek to this? Because he needs that letter, she answered. I know what's inside. So does my eldest. That's why he's kept it hidden all these years. What's in it? I asked, my voice low. Her gaze darkened. A map. Hidden in the words my daughter wrote. Before I could say more, she excused herself, leaving me alone with more questions than answers. A muffled voice boomed from outside the room. A speech, just as she had said. I stayed put for a while, then finally slipped out, only to find every eye turning toward me as the speech ended. The stares felt heavier now. After hearing Roselle's warnings, I saw these people differently. Behind the polished smiles and perfect appearances, something darker simmered. Where have you been, Alice? A familiar voice asked. I turned to find Chandler watching me closely. Just around, I said carefully. Where's Derek? He's meeting the others. He'll find you soon, Chandler replied. But my attention drifted past him and froze. Down the hall, in a crisp tuxedo, stood Cash. What was he doing here? I slipped past the crowd, keeping my posture as elegant as I could. Excuse me, I said and spotted him. Cash. He looked up, blinking in surprise. The two women he'd been talking with drifted away. Yes? Do I know you? He asked kindly. Is there somewhere we can talk in private? I asked. The kitchen is usually empty, he offered. Come on. We walked through bright halls hung with chandeliers, past red carpet that made my heels feel 1,000 times higher. Every step I took I prayed I wouldn't trip. These shoes were a curse and a gift all at once. The kitchen was quiet and cavernous. I lowered my voice despite being alone with him. It's me, I whispered. Leo. His face registered shock. What? No way. I cleared my throat and summoned my best low voice. Dude, it's me. You were my driver once, you said I was cute, sent me an inappropriate photo, and then stopped replying to my messages after a while. His reaction was immediate and guilty. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to ghost you. I didn't know what to do. His cheeks flushed. I don't know how to be around people. I get overwhelmed. I let out a short laugh. So, you went from driving people around to being here in a mansion wearing a tux? I teased. He smiled, but it was a worried smile. Long story, he said. My family owns this place. I still drive sometimes. I'm not as settled as it looks. Okay, I said. So why did you stop talking to me? I thought we were friends. I cut things off because I was afraid I'd get feelings, he admitted. I didn't want to hurt you or myself. We traded truths like awkward confessions. I told him why I was here. Derek was meeting family for the first time, and I'd been smuggled in as part of a plan to keep me safe. We snuck me in disguised as a woman, I said with a shrug. You pulled it off, he said softly. You look like a real woman. Before the conversation could get more awkward, Chandler appeared, breezing into the kitchen like he owned the place. There you are, he said. Derek's waiting for you. I switched back into my practiced persona. My dear Cash, we'll catch up later. I'll call you. He grinned. Of course, madam. Chandler led me down a corridor of portraits to a library at the far end. The room was lined with books and heavy leather chairs. We sat opposite each other at a small table. I felt the dress fall perfectly around my crossed legs. "So, when did you and Derek get married?" Chandler asked, eyes intense. "He told me something else." "Last year," I lied. "And what is it about Derek that drew you in?" he asked, leaning closer. "He's the love of my life," I answered. "He's always been there for me, supportive and kind. I can't imagine anyone else." Chandler put a hand on my knee. His touch made me freeze. "If you ever feel like you're missing out, I could give you anything," he murmured. He moved forward and I tensed. At that moment the double doors opened and Derek stepped in. My body went rigid. Chandler's hand darted back as if startled. "Where have you been?" Derek asked, dropping onto the couch beside me. I had to force myself to stop staring at Chandler. I could see something like threat in Chandler's eyes. Derek seemed puzzled. "Did you get it?" I asked Derek quietly, my voice flat. "Yeah," he said. "You okay?" "I'm fine," I lied, though my gaze stayed fixed on Chandler. His smile looked wrong to me now, too smooth, too practiced. I felt exposed. "If you ever lay a hand on me, I'll make sure no amount of money can fix what you did," I said in my own voice, steady and clear. Derek's face shifted from confusion to horror as recognition dawned. He turned to his uncle with warning in his eyes. Chandler raised his hands, laughing lightly. "What are you on about?" "You have the letter." "We're leaving," I said to Derek, rising. Roselle's words about the family's secrets were still fresh in my mind. I wanted out. Derek followed me like a loyal shadow. His eyes flicked between me and Chandler, trying to read what had just happened. The mansion's rooms buzzed around us with music and conversation, servers weaving through the crowd. I pulled Derek's hand and guided him down the staircase. Heads turned as we passed. For a moment I felt the old panic prick at the edges, the feeling of being watched and judged. Outside, under the cool night air, I let out a breath I hadn't known I was holding. "Leo," Derek asked, tender and worried, "what's wrong?" "I don't want to be part of this," I said, voice tight. "I don't feel safe around them." "Tell me," he said, drawing me close. "I want to go home," I whispered, fighting to keep my balance on the heels. He hugged me hard. In his arms the world softened. "It's okay. We're going home. And you'll tell me everything," he promised, rubbing his thumb over my cheek. I nodded. "I'm never stepping into another mansion unless it's ours." Thanks for listening to today's BL story. If it made your heart skip a beat, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Only here on BL Stories, where love knows no limits.